Kim, I'm really excited to have you here today, mostly because I've wanted to spend some time with you, but also because you represent a really different side of the business, and I think that your input and your perspective on the kinds of questions I'm going to ask you will be really helpful to the students who are thinking about getting into marketing and communication. So I really appreciate that you joined us here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
What either inspired you, or what was the spark that made you think that this was the kind of industry that you wanted to work in?
I feel like I'm going to disappoint people by saying I had absolutely no intention or understanding of the advertising space before I actually ended up in it. I was a Russian history major in college, and I really had no idea what I was going to do at all when I graduated from college. And the only thing I did know was I wanted to live in New York City. I had grown up in a very small town in rural Wisconsin, and the idea of being somewhere with some anonymity was really the most exciting kind of goal I could actually come up with. So I took the first job I could find in New York City, which was an administrative assistant at a new magazine called Elle Decor, right out of school. And I absolutely fell in love with the publishing business through that first opportunity. And 25 years later, I find myself still in it.
You said you were a Russian history major. So I'm guessing that that's not something that you use every single day in the job that you do.
I can answer Jeopardy questions on Russian history very, very well. No, I don't. I don't use it in my day-to-day, but I will tell you, being a history major, I fell in love with storytelling, and I love history as a reference for the future. And I think about the coursework that I had in college in the liberal arts field, and I think that really set me up well for a career in content that I happened to stumble into.
You've been with a lot of brands on the publishing side.
Yeah.
Do you look for people who you think will fit the brand, or how do you look for people that you think might be interesting for your team or a perfect fit for the company? How do you approach that?
The business has changed a lot, and it continues to evolve. So I would say the two key characteristics I'm looking for are someone who is adaptive to change, so someone who is really kind of open to go with the flow, if you will. I find some young people that I talk to be very single track. And what I mean by that very specifically is they have been training themselves through education and through internships and a number of things in a very kind of singular, with a very singular focus and a singular track, and they have an idea of exactly what it's going to be. And I promise, at least on my side of the industry, it will disappoint. And I need someone who's going to be flexible and be more fluid in their approach to whatever the day may throw at them once they start. On the other hand, I would actually say what I really look for are something I call cross athletes. And it's people with diversity of interests and experiences. I love people who have worked in restaurants and bars. I think that people who have done some customer service in their teens or in their early 20s is invaluable and irreplaceable kind of life experience and business experience that's very practical in almost any industry I can think of. But I really like this kind of cross-athlete personality, and I would say cross-athlete attitude. Someone who's willing to kind of dive in or jump into any project or proposal or strategy, gung-ho, ready to learn, whether that's what they came to do or not.
Right. That's great. I'm so excited to hear that. I was talking to someone else today. I was a waitress, he was a lifeguard, and we said, you know, we had no choice because we had to pay our tuition. So it's kind of like you learn the hard knocks, and that pays off too. So it's
I was a bartender.
You were a bartender
and a waitress. Yes. So
there you go.
If you can survive that, you can handle almost anything.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about flexibility and people who are adaptable because the industry's changed so much.
Absolutely.
And it changes, you know, some people say it changed in the last 10 years. I think it's changed in the last 2 months. Like for me, it feels like it's constantly
yesterday to today, yes.
Right, it's all new stuff.
Yes.
So is there any one particular thing or a couple things that you just didn't see coming?
I don't think I ever expected people in general to believe in unsourced information and fake news. I think that that's probably taken me personally, but the industry I represent and the industry I work in, the most off guard. And we never anticipated that the collective kind of populace would so wholeheartedly embrace information that was not sourced. And I think that it's a very scary moment.
Yeah.
And it's hurt us because actually, you know, if we derive a lot of our revenue through subscriptions and advertising, where people pay attention is actually where the money goes. And if people are paying a lot of attention to unsourced or unfact-checked, unqualified information and stories and news, fake news, the money is going in that direction, not towards the New York Times or the New Yorker or Wired or any institution that prides itself on truth or fact.
Oh.
And this is really the first time, I would say honestly, that's probably taken me the most off guard professionally and personally. So this is actually also the first time that those two worlds have collided. I think it's a very tough moment, and I actually think it's actually reinforcing and put a lot of wind in our sails to be better and to put out the best content we can. And most people who enter into this business are looking for the real.
Right, and have integrity.
Yeah, you have to be an optimist that it's going to swing back around.
What does a successful relationship look like with agency partners or client partners? Because there's what I want people to understand is the interaction that this whole field has in communications.
Absolutely. I think that the best partnerships are deeply collaborative. And it's actually, I mean, the best and most long-standing partnerships are those that it's hard to kind of tell where one company stops and the other starts. Like you're truly intertwined in the KPIs and the objectives and the creative intent of whatever you're building together. Mm-hmm. Those are the best partnerships. There are certainly transactional partnerships on the media side in particular where, listen, those are great, they're simple, but they tend to be more fly-by-night. Those are more kind of request for proposal based and right. Kind of quick. But the partnerships that last and renew year over year are the deeply collaborative, deeply creative partnerships.
Thank you. I want to first of all congratulate you because you are one of the Matrix Award winners this year.
Thank you.
And that's a massive honor. It's for all women in communications, so it's not just in this sort of narrow advertising marketing field, but it really is all of communications. It's a big honor and it's wonderful. How do you feel about that? And also, how do you feel about being a woman who's being called out for a job well done in an industry that's this big and frankly still doesn't have a lot of great representation overall?
I am completely honored and humbled. I've been thinking about my remarks for the acceptance, and what I think I'm going to talk about a little bit is how much I really get from watching the people around me advance in their own careers, and it has made it so worthwhile. And in particular, I spend a lot of time with the women on my teams to help them find their voice and to make sure that they're representing their work and, you know, taking credit and pushing forward.
We see a lot of young people just starting out in the business who are interested in kind of doing their own thing, being entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Is there, and they look at big advertising agencies and they wonder, is that the right place for me? Because mm-hmm. Can I really make a mark? Will I own my own thing? Is there a place for that in your business, in the content business, in the publishing business? And so is there a place for that?
You know, it's interesting. I think that in the content business, on the advertising side, or in the publishing business, I think that actually it's gotten to the point where what you're looking at is a collection of entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. I think that the notion of corporate infrastructure, stuffiness, we don't staff enough for everyone to have one job. People have multiple responsibilities and multiple jobs, really. And I don't think that most organizations that I see in the business that I'm in now they're not top heavy. They're not overly managed. What we're really looking for are a series of self-starters, and that really is the defining trait of an entrepreneur, someone who can actually get their work done without a lot of oversight, instruction, or direction. There's support there if you need it, but really it's on you. And the people I have the pleasure of working with, the talent that I work with, they're all fully accountable to their own work and their support. But at the end of the day, it's very entrepreneurial.
That's great news for a lot of the people who will be watching this, who I think want to feel like they can make an impact, have a space of their own to do some stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I love talking to you. I could go on.
So do I.